Welcome back to the Lynx Golf Podcast. I am Al Lunsford, digital editor for Lynx, joined by my co-host Joe Passoff, season 20 of the podcast. Here we go. We got another 12-week session for you guys, 12 episodes, and looking forward to another great season. Today we are going to talk a little bit about the contents of our 2025 fall issue, which at this point subscribers will have already received. Got for our viewers online, there's that beautiful cover. Jack Ducey, the photographer there. Oftentimes it's a overhead shot of a golf course or a little bit closer up with the rake on top of one of those revetted pot bunkers. And that ties into a piece inside the issue, which we'll get into. But Joe, hope you're doing well. Welcome back. Thanks for doing this with me again. We are delighted this season to be brought to you by our great friends at Tourism Ireland. So if you're looking for your next golf adventure, you can discover Ireland's world-class golf courses, from the legendary links of Ballybunion to the stunning views at Royal County Down. Whether you're teeing off at iconic events like the Open or a casual round, Ireland offers an unforgettable experience. With breathtaking landscapes, superb food and drink, and a welcoming atmosphere at every course, your perfect golf getaway is waiting. So visit ireland.com/golf today to start planning your dream golfing trip to the Emerald Isle. Can't wait to do that one day. Ireland is not somewhere I've been, but Joe, I know that you have.
Well, absolutely, Al. Some nice bookends, so to speak, in talking about Ireland, having the Open Championship this past year at Royal Portrush, and a memorable one at that. And then, of course, with the Ryder Cup this year at Bethpage, not on Long Island, and then talking about the lead up to the next Ryder Cup at Adair Manor in Ireland. Going to be a lot of focus on Ireland, as it has been this past year, and then in the lead up for the next couple of years. So, clearly a fantastic trip to make. Its charms are well documented, but so many great golf courses and other things after golf, before golf, aside from golf, that make the trip a bucket list item.
Yeah, and
Definitely.
You're right. Certainly, Ireland's been at the forefront of everyone's minds back to the Open. As we look ahead to 2027 at Adair Manor, we're probably going to get to an episode this season diving into Adair, maybe talk to somebody from that property and really dig in. It's never too early to start talking about the next Ryder Cup, Joe, and maybe never too late to keep talking about the one we just experienced at Bethpage Black in Long Island. So there were several pieces in this past issue that were sort of themed on the Ryder Cup. We talked about the great public golf of New York City. We had our Legends piece was on Sam Ryder, the seed merchant turned person who came up with the Ryder Cup, and in his background. What else do we have? Our classic course was on Bethpage Black, of course, and we said in the lead-in for that one, expected to do the Ryder Cuppers what it's done to pros and everyday golfers for nearly 90 years. Kick ass and take names. I don't know that we fulfilled what was promised there with Bethpage this year. Before we get into the rest of the issue, Joe, any reactions, thoughts? The off-the-course stuff was obviously a hot-button topic, has been, still is among people. But maybe from the play itself, Joe, what were your reactions from the Ryder Cup and Bethpage?
Yeah, Al, if we're focusing on the actual play and the results, I think a lot of the results, the number of birdies and so forth, were dictated by the course setup. And and then how weather also affected the situation. And I mean, different folks have touched on this. It was mentioned often during the telecast, but I just don't know that it was mentioned enough. I don't know that because of all the other, you know, bad fan behavior issues, the incredible comeback, the second guessing about pairings, captain's choices, and all the rest. There hasn't been enough emphasis in the fact that Bethpage Black, one of the most difficult courses, private or public, that the public gets to play, that the pros get to play, was just sapped of its strengths. It showed beautifully because the all 3 days, the weather was cooperative. There was sun, there were shadows, showed the scale of the place, the size of the bunkers, the shaping, configuration of the bunkers. Um, you had that built-in visual drama with all the aerial shots of those massive bunker complexes flanking the 18th fairway, for instance, or the gigantic bunkers at 4 and 5 in front of 15. All of that's fine. It's just uh, you expect the best golfers in the world at least to be tested. That not only does the pressure of a Ryder Cup influence how you might swing, the decisions you might make under that kind of pressure, but that the golf course is going to ask questions of you that put everything into focus, and instead it did not. And that was really dismaying to me. Now, I was at Hazeltine in 2016, where the course setup favored the Americans in that there were going to be a bunch of birdies made, and that was to the American side advantage. Easier hole locations, a lot of middle hole locations for the Americans. This time, it didn't really matter too much if you hit it in the first cut of rough or if you hit it into the fescues. You generally could get a club on the ball without too much effort. And the greens, as man, Fuzzy Zeller, somebody great from my past said it was like hitting into pudding. It really was. And the greens were so soft, rolling perfect. We saw so many putts made. But when you can hit it out of the rough and have a ball stop right there when it hits the green, or all the spinny approaches that were happening, whether it got you closer to the hole or hold it back off the green a little bit. That's just not what we've come to expect anymore from our championship tests of golf, where firm and fast, and especially on the greens, is the rule rather than the exception. So I know a little bit of a rant I just went on, but and I know it rained really, really hard the day before on the Thursday, but Al, that just wasn't a proper test. And Europe can hit it, other than our lead Bryson DeChambeau in the driving distance. They can hit it as far as we can. So disappointing from the standpoint that I love great courses to show off their attributes, and the black at Bethpage was not able to do that this week.
Yeah, the last line of Mark Canizaro's piece, he's the one who wrote our classic course on Bethpage Black. The black course will be bigger than ever when the Ryder Cup's played there, but it'll be anything but peaceful. I don't think that was correct in hindsight as it relates to the golf course. How could he have known how differently it would play than it normally does? Definitely wasn't peaceful off the course, and that's a whole nother story. But yeah, really no issues being in the rough. I heard people talking about unsubstantiated rumor was sometimes the strategy was to play in the rough because of what the greens were like and how soft they were, just too spinny out of the fairway, and the being in the rough kind of gave you a better chance to get close to the hole in some cases. Europe just dominates from the beginning. The home course advantage from setup perspective, there wasn't one, and it was sort of saved by what happened in Sunday singles. And uh, although I never really thought Europe was, it got out of their control. It was just sort of a matter of when it was going to end on Sunday. There was a glimmer of hope late, though. I mean, I was locked in watching, and Shane Lowry misses that putt. Who knows what happens? But um, entertaining on Sunday. Everything else, anything but.
Well, depending on whose side you were rooting for,
Yeah, I
yes,
guess
it was
that's true.
entertaining on Friday and Saturday, but
Yeah.
from the European side,
Yeah, I can't
uh,
remember what we had predicted on our Ryder Cup preview that we did, but I think I remember saying, this, if the Europeans win, kind of at that point, maybe predicting they might. Where does this leave the U.S.? We're certainly in a place now where they go to Ireland in 2 years, and what chance do you give them? A lot of things will probably change between now and then, but wouldn't be surprised again to see the European team look almost exactly the same as it did these past two cups. So the experience matters, and they have it on their side. Okay, that's enough Ryder Cup for now. Let's get into the issue, Joe. Let's start with your piece that you had for this one. It was a light issue for Mr. Joe Passoff. Normally he has a feature or two, and he's axe to the grindstone. He's got his hands full and burning the midnight oil. But this one, unless I'm wrong, I think he just had one piece in this one, and a very interesting, a place that maybe not too many Americans are familiar with, maybe have heard of it given the ties to Alistair McKenzie. But tell us about your backstory on New South Wales.
sure. Well, we started the backstory for 2025. There's been one in each issue. And as its name describes, it's one thing just to review a golf course as it is. It's another thing where an aspect of the course history or course design strikes me as particularly noteworthy. And so that's why I tell the backstory. In this case, New South Wales Golf Club um, near Sydney, Australia, where most of the great Australian courses that we think about are in the sandbelt of Melbourne. But there are plenty of wonderful golf courses beyond Melbourne, around Sydney, Adelaide, down south on the Mornington Peninsula. So, yeah, after you do your Scotland and Ireland trip, and even England, which we're going to get into, um, Australia is a fabulous place. And Alistair McKenzie, my pick for the greatest architect of all time, made that trip, his one and only trip there in 1926, and influenced a generation or two of architects, golf in Australia, and the rest of it. One of his masterworks was a course that he laid out uh, at outside of Sydney called New South Wales Golf Club. And for years and years, as photos would get disseminated, um, and and that kind of thing, as people learned a little bit about New South Wales Golf Club, um, we saw this photo of the par 3 sixth hole, which looked to be something like Cypress Point 16th, with a tee at the edge of land, and then a shot over a cape of some kind, ocean water, if you will, and a green that's sitting on the other side of it. Absolutely spectacular. And I had the chance to go down there the first time I went to Australia in 1992 and played that golf hole. Love the one that came right before it, par 5, that went up a slope, and then once you reach the crest of the hill, look down at Botany Bay. Um, Spectacular. And then you got to this new hole, I mean, the next hole. And so I just thought, gosh, 1926, this was before Cypress Point was built by a couple of years. Maybe this was Mackenzie's model for what he did at Cypress Point. Again, we're talking more than 30 years ago. And I wasn't the only one for years that thought this was Alistair Mackenzie's work. So as the years went on and the world got smaller, architectural communities got smaller, they all reached out to each other, and more knowledge was gained, more research was done, people could communicate with each other in a variety of ways. And eventually, folks over here, including me, became aware that that was not the work of Alistair Mackenzie, that a lot of Mackenzie is left to go see and enjoy at New South Wales, but that the sixth hole, and in fact, all of the par three holes at New South Wales Golf Club were actually designed by an Australian named Eric Apperley. And that was the fun that I had in doing the research of the piece. I knew of Eric Apperley because I've written about New South Wales, many times since. But I think people and many Lynx readers would not know too much about Eric Apperley. He was a marvelous player, Australian amateur champion, very educated, was the first actual golf course architect specifically trained for that purpose in Australia, and only designed a few other courses on his own, but absolutely needs to be recognized and applauded for this golf hole and what he did at New South Wales. And then beyond that, it was also interesting to report on the fact that Tom Doak came in 2019, 2020 or so, and touched up the sixth hole and much of the golf course there. And then with COVID and very, very tough to get to Australia and some of Doak's other projects, he and the club agreed to go separate ways. And a good friend of our program, Martin Ebert, and of Mackenzie and Ebert, came in, and they actually then redid part of the sixth green complex and some of the rest of the golf course to make it cohesive from hole to hole to hole. And gosh, Al, I hope I haven't told the entire story where folks don't want to actually go out and read it and reread it. But the essence of the backstory, yeah, is just sometimes we get the architect wrong. History has gotten the architect wrong. I think of that in places like Kittansett Club in Massachusetts, out near Cape Cod, where it was thought that one of the club poobahs, Frederick Hood, had been responsible for the design, and Flynn scholar Wayne Morrison uncovered a set of plans that William Flynn, great Golden Age architect, had actually done the golf course, and 13 holes left at Kittansett are still Flynn's. There are definitely other examples out there of mistaken identity when it comes to architects. So it's fun to go back and do your history. But, for me, this was also a selling point to say there is some spectacular golf in Australia, and take the time and get the opportunity and go see it, especially if you're an Alistair Mackenzie fan.
And you'd be forgiven looking at it and understanding, the rest of it was Mackenzie's design, other than the par threes. But it kind of looks like it fits, and it would be a Mackenzie hole. So a lot of times these are like, how did this hole get to be where it is? Like you did with the 18th at Macklemore in a previous issue. And this was more so like, we knew it was there, but the prevailing theory and general thought behind it was Mackenzie. Turns out it wasn't. So That was an interesting read for sure. Uh, and I meant to mention that if you are looking to read stuff from this issue, you can go to our website. We have a current issue tab, linksmagazine.com/magazine dash intro. That will give you a preview as to what is in this issue, the fall 2025 issue of Links, where you can click in and read some of these stories. If you're a Premier subscriber to Links, you can access all of them. If not, you'll be hit with a gate after you've read your allotted free articles online, but you can get a general idea of what's in this issue. And by the way, even though subscribers have this issue, you can buy this issue as a single issue. So there's a link there to do that as well. I would encourage anyone who's interested. You're not too late. You can get this issue and still read it, or you can subscribe and get a full year's worth of links for just $25.99, Joe. So I think it's less than a cup of coffee a month. Feel like people could, you know, be comfortable with that from a price point. But I digress. Elsewhere in the issue, for my writing purposes, I did our first peek on the Great Dunes course at Jekyll Island, which we talked extensively about. I encourage people to go back and listen to that podcast that we did with Jeff Stein and Brian Ross, the guys in charge of restoring and building new Walter Travis features there at Great Dunes. Golf's old man, as he is called, which that had been reduced down to 9 holes over time. Now it's back, opening this fall as a new 18-hole design, open to the public to see Walter Travis features and experience that. And also have my recurring in development feature called World Roundup in the issue. This one we talked about. Nauka is a new community in Mexico with a Tom Fazio 18-hole design. We had a new 18-hole course in Zimbabwe that we talked about from Zimbabwean architect, former European Tour player Peter Matkovich. We covered the announcement of the Ambush course at Marcella there in Park City, Utah. So a second 18-hole course joining the Tiger Woods design being built out there. The second one is King Collins Dormer in charge of that. Exciting news there. The 8th course at Reynolds Lake Oconee, currently underway. 18 holes from Steve Smyers. And finally, the Wii course that opened recently in Michigan at Harbor Shores Resort. A little 9-hole Colin Montgomery designed pitch and putt in Benton Harbor, Michigan. So you can read more about that in the World Roundup article that, again, you can access online or read in your issue. I will quickly run down some of the other stuff that's in this issue, and wanted to speak to 3 of those 4 features. I mentioned the public golf in New York City. Quickly, we'll get to the rest of it. Our Great Courses of Britain and Ireland feature is on Hunston. There's a way to say that I think I'm not saying correctly.
And
English.
There is another story in our issue that explains the ways of saying that and how to tell a taxi driver or an Uber driver how to get there.
Yeah. The Letter to America from Richard Pinnell was a golf in Britain survival guide. As I'm planning a trip to Scotland next year, I'll definitely bookmark this one just to know a little bit of the ins and outs of how the Brits identify certain things. Hunston, yeah, is the curtailed version of the way to say that. Classic Norfolk links. What else do we have? George Pepper's column was a really fun read. It talks about how we're sort of living in the best possible time in this intersection of our lives and where the game of golf is today. Joe, I know you read that one. Let's briefly talk about that one before we get to the rest.
Well, George is a very well respected voice in our industry for many, many years. And this was an adaptation from a speech that he gave at one of the great classic Golden Age horses clubs, Yeaman's Hall. And it was so well received that it spread all over the country among members at elite clubs. It was like, you should read this. Did you read this? I got it from three different sources, two from the United States, one from across the pond. And I'm smiling every time I saw it in my inbox because A, I know George Pepper is well capable of this kind of writing and this kind of thinking about golf. But it really made me smile knowing this member of this other really exclusive club and this one that's in the top 20 across the pond, they all had the same reaction on just how wonderful and uplifting these words were. Do yourself a favor and go find this story in Links magazine because it is very uplifting to read.
Yeah. It's a lot of like great references about how we've been part of a golden age of golf and everything else surrounding it. I was kind of gritting my teeth when he talked about they were. If you're a little bit older than my generation, you know, you had college was affordable, jobs were plentiful, home ownership was achievable. That one was kind of like, ugh, that's what I'm looking to buy a house in between houses right now. Like, yeah, it's kind of a little bit tough right now. But we witnessed both the first moon landing and the first personal computer. Uh, there's a lot of great anecdotes in here from George, and yeah, I'm not gonna recite the whole thing here as we talk, but certainly worth a read, and it has absolutely resonated with a lot of people.
And
Continuing in
Al,
the yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I will jump in as we continue and just say, even looking at the four main features we have and the rest of the issue, why we wave the flag for Links Magazine, and say it is a value to be able to tap into everything that we deliver is that you are getting features and then some of the department aspects that you will not find anywhere else. And that's what's fun about this for a reader who appreciates the great places in golf, or the Links tagline, the best of golf. But again, you won't find these stories anywhere else. And this just happened to be a particularly eclectic mix, appealing to all and yet very different one from the other.
Original independent journalism. Thank you all for your support. Anyone who's listening right now, continued support of the magazine and everything, all of its properties surrounding it. Uh, the continuing on, we had wrote our away game was on Turkey. Characters piece was on a guy named Darren Wargo, who is a camera operator who sits on top of the crane at golf tournaments, so 125 feet up in the air. Adam Shupak talked to him about how in the world he got started with that, and some of the interesting quirks and things that only someone in that job would have to do. We had 5 reasons to love, covering a golf resort around the world. This one was Greece's Costa Navarino, which has 4 of the best golf courses. There's actually only 9 18-hole layouts in the country of Greece, and 4 of them are at this one resort. So certainly worth a look there. Top 10 in this issue was the country of Canada, the Great White North, our neighbors up on top of us up there. Lots of good golf in Canada, and we whittled it down to 10. So our features, we're going to rifle through these. The first one, and that's where the cover comes from. It's something that I had not previously been aware of, and it's always fun to read about Walter Hagen. Everyone kind of, if you're familiar, if you're a fan of golf, you've probably heard a story about the Hague, about Walter Hagen, and how much of a personality, his bravado, how big of an icon he was in his time. But in 1920, he turned a pre-open practice round into a cross-country trek across three classic English links. Now that a group has started an event called the Hagen 54, which also known as the Hagen Hoof. So you're invited to give this a try. It is the three courses are Prince's, Royal Cinque Ports, and Royal St. George's. And so in one day, they've created this event where you can play all 54 holes in the routing that Walter Hagen did this lap on. A fascinating thing I'd never heard of, but I believe that was their first year, maybe, that they did it this past year, and it will continue on. So, yeah, the inaugural one took place in July of this year, 105 years after Walter Hagen's original adventures. You can start booking now for the next edition, which is next July, 2026.
And all three of those golf courses are open championship venues.
Mm-hmm. Right. Royal St. George is the only one on the current open rota, as most would recognize, but right there, boom, 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 next to each other. I mean, you can, and Walter Hagen literally did just walk between the three of them, and in doing this. Next feature was that I wanted to talk about. Joe referenced it about pros sneaking onto golf courses, maybe in their youth or at one point in time in their life. Anywhere from Keegan Bradley, a lot of people probably heard that story for the first time during the Ryder Cup, where he talked about playing for St. John's and sneaking on to play those finishing holes and holes 1 and 2 at Bethpage when he was in college. They got to play 12 of the holes, knowing someone over there, the superintendent, but were never supposed to go play the 15 through 18 and 1 and 2. They decided at one point to give it a shot, basically almost get arrested in doing so. So Adam Shupak, another piece of his in our issue, talked to some other players who had stories about that.
Including Lee Trevino and Gary
Yep.
Player. Now,
Yep.
Al, I'll fire this off to you because I have my own. Have you ever snuck onto a golf course to play a hole or several holes?
I think the short answer is I probably snuck on the course that we belonged to in growing up. Technically sneaking on over 100 times, just because we could walk out and go and play like a little loop without actually going in the pro shop and saying, "Hey, we're going out to play." And just sort of boop boop and play 6 holes and you're out of there. So yes, I was scratching my head trying to think of another example of that, but certainly have walked out and without giving the proper notice. How about yourself?
Yeah, when I was a young guy, I had a really good friend from my tennis days who lived on a course called Scottsdale Country Club, which now kind of goes by Starfire these days. And he had a golf hole in his backyard. And late in the day, during the summer, when nobody was playing, we would go out and play a loop of about 4 or 5 holes. And those were in the days where you could rely on a summer monsoon, dust storm, or wind, or rain, or something to kick up. And they would. And because we were young and fearless, aka stupid, we would go out in it. And anytime you had blowing dust, you had a good risk for getting valley fever, which is a little bit like mono. But we went out anyway because it was golf and there was nobody at that time and during that weather. But maybe my best example, it was only one golf shot But for years, during my travels on 17-mile drive in Pebble Beach on the Monterey Peninsula, there was one golf hole that stuck out at Monterey Peninsula Country Club, the 14th hole on the Dunes course, which was their original golf course. And if I never did get access to it, I was just going to say, I'm going to play that hole one day. I'm
Mm.
going to just get out of the car late in the day, nobody's around, take my shot at it. And sure enough, I finally did. And jumped out to the tee, hit a golf shot, carried the ocean, got onto the green, and then got back in the car with my friend, and we continued on. But at least I had hit a shot at that hole. Of course, in the coming years, and I got into the golf business as a writer, and the rest of it, I got to play it for real, legitimately several times, including after a Reese Jones renovation of the hole, and it's been, touched up again by Tom Fazio, Jackson Kahn. But that was not only a thrilling shot to play, but a thrill knowing somebody could come along and call your golf clubs and the rest of you for trespassing. And anyway, if you hear that, I think the statute of limitations has long expired, so don't reach out to me. But that was awesome to do.
You're probably looking over your shoulder constantly and just trying to get it out of there as soon as you possibly can. The other ones that were part of that piece, Graham McDowell and talking about Royal Portrush, that was quite a good example. Luke Clanton had a good story. And one that wasn't part of it that I remember being mentioned around his victory at the Tour Championship, and will certainly be a part of tournament storylines next year at Royal Birkdale. Tommy Fleetwood, I guess, used to sneak out at Royal Birkdale. So this will come back around. I'm assuming in a year once we get to the Open, we'll hear that story again. That's another fun example. Lastly, we had a piece by Jim Frank that Joe also referenced on America's oldest golf resorts. So we took a look at the 10 oldest in the country, starting with the Omni Homestead in Hot Springs, Virginia. 1766 is the year we have cited for the Omni Homestead Resort and Spa. Apropos, we're planning a event at the Omni Homestead, Joe, next June. So details to come there, and keep an eye on our events page of our website for more information there. A great place to visit, great time of year to be there in June in Virginia. So keep an eye on that. But yeah, how many of these? That I think that may be the only one that I crossed off. We saw Jekyll Island here again at number 9, dating back to 1886, Jekyll Island Club Resort. But I am 1 for 10. What about you, Joe?
Yeah, I've got 4 out of 10, and a little disappointed, considering my travels, that it wasn't more, and how much I love history and the great historical properties that offer golf. I think those are worthy of seeking out because you have your share of top 100s that we all want to go do, but then pure history is you see how golf developed in the country. You see how the whole concept of going to a resort evolved in getting away for a vacation. Loved that we ran the photo we did of the Omni Homestead. We ran 2 of them, the Cascades course, a great William Flynn design, and where Sam Snead grew up. And then, of course, the photo of the red brick clock tower rising out of the trees at the homestead. And that's where folks stay. And I saw a photo of that when I was a teenager looking at great resorts in a coffee table book and said, I want to go there one day. That just looks so awesome. And Al, you've been privileged to go. I've been several times, and now links readers will have that opportunity to join in and celebrate this kind of golf history. So that's going to be a great links trip.
Yeah, they've
Yeah,
done a ton in renovating the place too. Spent millions of dollars. So even probably since the last time you went, things have had been significantly upgraded. So it is a tremendous hotel property, two golf courses loaded with history. You got the hot springs uh, that will use their healing powers to make you feel like a whole new person. Um, but yeah, you can read more about the oldest golf resorts in the country in that. We didn't mention everything that's in this issue. Of course, the best way to see what we wrote about is by subscribing. So again, you can buy this issue as a single copy. You can subscribe to get a year's worth of issues, so you never have to miss out. Print subscription or a digital subscription will do the job. You can read it online if you'd like, but if you're like me, if you're like Joe, you like to have something in your hands, a hard copy that you can flip through. So visit our website to subscribe for more great content that we are continuously producing. But Joe, anything further? This has been a nice start to season 20 for us. Anything else you want to get off your chest before we call it on this first episode?
well, Al, I think we covered it pretty well. You know, everybody's still buzzing about the Ryder Cup, and again, you know, we've got a little bit of that in this fall issue that's still worth looking at and
Yeah.
reflecting on. You know, the other thing that is in this issue, of course, a really great section about golf history in South Carolina.
Hey, yeah.
And that was really a fun read, um, uh, beautifully produced. And again, you know, if you're a Links magazine reader, you're doing tuning into this podcast, you probably love golf history. And when golf courses, destinations tie in with history, it to me it's the perfect combination. So you know, some terrific historical stories in this one, and that section on traveling around South Carolina and seeing both golf history and state history, I think is another really fun read.
Yeah. That one you can only read in print. That's our we had a podcast about it, a one-off podcast that I did with my companion on that trip, Billy Richards, South Carolina golf history tour, where we went to Aiken Golf Club, Pine Lakes, the Granddaddy in Myrtle Beach, and Furman, and then a course called Kershaw that you probably wouldn't find yourself at, but was a fun day nonetheless. So, yeah, there are certain things that you're only going to be able to read if you're a subscriber. So go to our site, click that subscribe button. We really appreciate all of your support. And that'll do it for this episode. Thanks for listening, Joe. Until the next one. And thanks to our friends at Tourism Ireland. Again, visit ireland.com/golf to start planning your trip to Ireland. Thanks, Joe.
You are welcome, Al. Look forward to our next edition of the Links Golf Magazine podcast.
Yes, sir.